in Congress were against the war, and the War Powers Act was written and supported by 5 or 6, 7, 8 moderate liberal Republicans. In fact, they wrote the document. They wrote the first treaty. A guy named Bill Miller that worked for the senator from Kentucky, John Sherman Cooper. They drafted it. I mean, Republicans then, the moderate Republicans, were against the war. Now they're blank. Chuck Schumer's going to ask for an investigation into the pipeline bombing because of the implications for Europe. The implications are we've always had Europe's back. We no longer, the Europeans, the Germans and the Europeans, and certainly NATO know, some countries know, that we don't have their back anymore, that he chose the war over them. Cutting the act of, it's really, if I were, look, I had a lot of contact with people in the Bundestag, their parliament. I don't do politics. I never testified. I didn't talk to anybody from that. But I will tell you, there's a lot more concern about Biden cutting off their ability to have cheap, run their industries and stay warm. You took that option away from them. And the consequences of that, it's, will be seen, particularly next year if it's a cold winter, because they don't have the storage anymore. They had a lot of stuff stored for this winter. All right, I'm done with my soliloquy.
Well, I just want to comment on some of the things you were talking about. On the rally in Munich, Schultz came out against it before it happened, and the media also, they called it a niche rally and made fun of it because, quote, there were right-wing people there. So it depends on, if you're anti-war, you just can't be anti-war. It's because you believe in something else. They don't like you. And number two, there are 84 million people in Germany. Some 50 million turned out. We had a rally in D.C., War Against the Rage.
50,000.
50,000, excuse me. Rage Against the War Machine on February 19th. And I was one of the speakers there. And only about 2,000 to 4,000 people showed up. It was at the Lincoln Memorial. And it was brought to you by the Libertarian Party, the People's Party. And top people were there, Ron Paul, Tulsi Gabbard, myself, a whole crew. And I'm just saying peace isn't a part of America anymore in the spirit of the country. And you're old enough to remember, too. The protests were going on in Vietnam because there was the draft. And there's no draft anymore. Nobody cares.
I'll tell you something else. I think that's a factor. But I've also learned in the last couple of years from Vietnam Veterans Against the War and other publications, there was much more dissent inside the Army in the war. I knew there was a lot, but there was a hell of a lot more than I thought. I mean, it even went to the aircraft carriers. There was a lot of problems that the Army had. But, that's their job, to fight a war, whether it's popular or unpopular. I don't know what to tell you, my pal. I don't know what to tell you. I worry about, look, again, getting back to the newspapers, after Trump, which was very scary for a lot of people, because there were some things about him were sort of interesting, I must confess. But basically, he did the wrong thing on the election. He did the wrong thing, and he absolutely did. There's no excuse for what he did. And there's no excuse for some of his policies because they were sort of irrational, very much. I was not a supporter of him in any way whatsoever. But having said that, the newspaper seemed to think, okay, Biden was not Trump, so that's why he won. But they've got to get tougher on Biden. They're just not tough enough on him.
You know what I call them? I call them media prostitutes, media whores that get paid to put out by their corporate pimps and their government whoremasters.
Well, but the media right now,
I'm just saying what the media is now. Oh, they just brought Psaki into MSNBC. Oh, where did she come from? Oh, where did that guy Stephanopoulos come from? I mean, one after another.
I don't like the ex-CIA and FBI guys that are being paid to go up there.
Yeah.
But I will tell you a funny story. I got to go, and we could go on for 3 weeks, you and I, who would drink the most beer or whatever scotch I like. But we'd have a steak and a beer. Next time you come to town, I'll let you know.
I'm Italian. I drink wine.
I only buy good Italian wines, but that you can find great Italian wines it's amazing the stuff there. My wife's, one of her brothers is married to an Italian woman. And so we not because of COVID, we used to go up to up the Park Paradiso to hike in summer, up above and way up right below the Tunnel of France. The great park,
Wow.
there's beautiful national parks in Italy. You go up there and I mean, just fun. I hated it, but I hate hiking, but it sure is beautiful. Your country's beautiful, your ex country.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you a story about reporters that always knocks me out. So Biden flies. By the way, Biden flies to see Zelensky, and when he gets into Poland, the newspapers all write about it. The Air Force One, I assume it's Air Force One. They didn't say it. His plane, they turned off his transponder, his IFF, which has to be, that's the way other planes identify you. And one of the things that's ironic about it, there's some of these people who believe in open air in intelligence. The criticism for me, they monitor signals. No plane did what I said they did, drop a sonar to trigger the bombs at 3:00. I had whatever. No plane was there. And of course, all you have to do is turn off the transponder, as the president did, and you can't be seen by the OSINT guy. But it's an argument you don't even make with them. So committed to what they see. And they don't see pictures, they see electronic stuff. Turns off the thing, and then he lands, and then he takes a walk with Zelensky in Kiev. And oh my God, for the first time in 10 days, the air raid sirens go off. This brave guy, they haven't gone off since. And not one reporter has bothered to go and ask I did. And of course it was prearranged.
Yeah.
What do you think? I worked when the Vietnam War was on, and I wasn't fired by the AP, but I worked. I did 2 years covering the Pentagon, and I got into the guys that didn't like the war, and I began to write about all the bombing that was going on. This is before the days of satellites, so we didn't know what was going on, and we just took the White House's word. And so McNamara was always over the head of the AP. A perfectly nice guy named Gallagher. But eventually they pulled me out and they reassigned me to health and something like that. And I was a mess. I quit anyway. And so, and by the way, I left a good job at the New York Times. After 7 wonderful years, I started writing about corporations. Much easier to write about war and CIA ops than corporations. And then at the New Yorker, I was doing fine there until, I don't know, the politics of, I don't know, whatever the reasons are. They had nothing to do with reporting. I left that. And one of the things is, for somebody like me, is, I've said this once before to somebody, is nobody wants me really, because I walk into an editor's desk with a rat full of lice, and I plop it down on this desk, and I say, here's my next project. And it may cost you 50 or 100,000. I'm going to take off tomorrow and fly business class anywhere. And I'm going to go and maybe a 40%, 2 out of 5, I'll connect. And when I do connect, you're going to have extra fact checkers on it, because it's going to be a tough story to check. And then you're going to have the lawyers understand, your lawyers, that you're going to get 4 or 5 thefts from law firms. And then you're going to lose readers. So is it a wonder when I left it, I left after they shoved me into another job, that when I left, there was everybody's go. And at the New York Times, when I started getting bitching about coverage of corporations, it was get out of here. And at the AP, at the New Yorker, I was very tough on a bunch of Obama stories. Obama was just a pal looking for re-election. I'm very down on Obama. I think
I called Obama out at the very beginning. Again, I call him the Nobel Peace of Crap Prize winner.
Well, I was worried.
Look what he did to Libya. Look what he did to Syria. I want that guy Assad out of there. You grew up around the mob. I want that guy Gaddafi out of there. I mean, come on.
Well,
look at that.
For me, it was really simple. This 2 days into the presidency, he signed an executive order to close Guantanamo.
Yeah.
And at Guantanamo, the Bush-Cheney White House had somebody from the CIA after 2 months there, but there was so many worry about this madness that was going on, the torture of prisoners. R&R, they were mandated by the Red Cross International, 1 hour for prisoners, 1 hour a day. And so they would put people in a straitjacket and throw them out into a little square grassy area in 110 degrees for an hour. That was the R&R. I mean, I learned stuff very early about it. And so when he said I was going to close it and he didn't do it, was for me.
No, I began, without going into it, I began my career running political campaigns in Westchester County. I was the assistant to the secretary of the New York State Senate at 26 years old. I got on the inside, very quickly. And I've been with presidents, prime ministers, and princes in my lifetime. And to me, the people running politics